Johnny Hogeland spent the rest day gently flexing the 33 stitches holding his rear end together, and he will be riding out in the polka dot jersey today to universal acclaim from the roadside, I should think. Same goes for Juan Antonio Fletcher, who went down in that crash with him. Now, we're in Carmaux for stage 10 of the Tour as it heads south into the Tarn and ultimately towards the Pyrenees. And I'm sure you're anxious to get your fix of cycling, having gone through the cold turkey of the rest day yesterday. But as so often on the Tour, there's so much going on that we just need to have a quick briefing session before we can get stuck into the race. Now, stage 10 is the shortest of the race so far, 158 kilometres from Aurillac to Carmaux. The intermediate sprint is only 37.5 kilometres into the stage, so there's every incentive for the green jersey contenders. Once they're through that, there are 4 climbs along the route, the last of them just 15 kilometres from home. Once the riders reach Carmaux, they'll know for the first time that there are fewer kilometres ahead of them in this race than there are behind them.
Preceded by 2 kilometres of fast sweeping descent, this finish is technical even in the dry. The riders are going to arrive here at speeds in excess of 80 kilometres an hour. Soon after passing under this, the 1 kilometre banner, we're going to have to abruptly change velocity for this sharp right-hand bend. But if that fast descent didn't string them out, that corner certainly will, and it's not over there either. With a mere 350 metres remaining, the road swings abruptly left to bring them almost in sight of the finishing banner. In fact, they're so close to that checkered flag, there might only be time and room for maybe 5 or 10 protagonists. And if it's wet, well, it could simply be a case of first round the corner and whoever's left standing. It's slightly reminiscent of last year's stage 6 finish to Guignon, where the sweeping bends made lead-outs tricky. On that occasion, it was the Garmin team who did the lion's share on behalf of Tyler Farrar, stringing out the field nicely. But in the end, it was the superior timing of a certain Manxman that won the day. Yeah, we'd settle for some more of that.
As we go under 10 kilometres to go with the peloton now, we are looking at just 14 seconds spread on the field in the Tour de France. It is Garmin Cervelo who's got control of the front now.
There's so much firepower in this breakaway, and they could be dragging Tony Galopin in the red and white jersey of Cavendish here, Phil, to a French victory.
More speed required, says Thomas Voigtler. Tony Martin says, well, you come in front of me then. He says, no thanks, I'm going behind you. The Union flag of Great Britain indicating there that the headwind now might be having its effect. They're all dodging on the back wheel of Gilbert, but nobody seems able to go and give the Belgian a hand. And Jens Voigt is trying desperately now to bring the rest of the race into contact.
Well, a little move here by David Ince as he tries to split up the group. He probably realised it's starting to come back now, Phil. We're looking at 7 seconds. There's the main field. These are very desperate moments. Ooh, and poor old Philippe Gilbert, he's probably got an awful lot of lactic acid in those thighs.
Now goes a move by Euskadi on the right. They haven't got a real sprinter, but they certainly got some opportunities to try and go. It looks to me like Izagir who's made a move here. Philippe Gilbert gritting his teeth here. He heard the time check had just gone up a shade to 10 seconds, and he's gone again.
Well, you know, this man is having an incredible season, and he's having an incredible Tour de France. He has literally ridden the other riders in the breakaway right off his wheel. Tony Martin is going back to the main peloton, and I think that will be a big advantage for Mark Cavendish, because Tony Martin is a powerful man, a powerful part of the lead-out for HTC High Road. The peloton still haven't got themselves back to Philippe Gilbert. If he wins this one, this is going to be an incredible victory. And they must be wondering, Phil, what can we do to pull back Philippe Gilbert?
Well, he's got himself into his time trial mode now. He's looking lazily onto the handlebars, as streamlined as he can. They are still on this long descent here. They're absolutely flying into Carmaux.
Well, he's got himself still 12 seconds advantage over the peloton, and it's a bit of panic on board, I think, in the peloton this afternoon.
Well, Philippe has just hit the one little uphill there before we continue our way down to the bottom, and that is where the peloton have used it. There is Mark Cavendish, 4th man in white to the right. Rocas is just behind Cavendish as well. So HTC High Road are now getting control of the race, as again we now see an attack from Perez. Alain Perez has launched an attack.
Well, another slight move coming here from Vacansoleil, but just look at the organisation of HTC High Road. They're not panicking. They don't want to respond to any of these attacks. They want to keep a steady tempo, because if you accelerate, that really is bad for the sprinters. That's the American rider TJ Van Garderen setting the tempo on the front of the pack, but lined up behind him are all of the HTC High Road lead-out squad.
Well, the one man missing from HTC High Road, surprisingly, is Matty Goss. He's just been dropped by this group and is now behind the race. So I'm a bit surprised at that, but he's not having a good day after that rest. The others are all here and working for Cavendish. Again, Mark Cavendish has surprised us on a hilly day. This pure sprinter has survived to looking likely now to fighting out the finish.
Well, very often, Phil, people say Cavendish can't climb, but bear in mind, you don't win Milan-San Remo if you can't climb.
That is the longest one-day race at over 300 kilometres, 180 plus miles, straight down from Milan to San Remo. Now, no help coming here.
When you come down to the end of a race like this, it's quite easy to make that first initial attack to get off the front of the peloton, but then all of a sudden you get smacked with the wind in your face, and the difficult thing is actually continuing that effort. There are not many riders in the peloton who can actually ride off a main field as they come down to the last 4 or 5 kilometres of a race like this. And in fact, the riders who can do it could do it, I should say, were riders like Lyatislav Ekimov, who did that a number of years ago to win a stage of the Tour.
We are looking for 3 kilometres to go here as Biel Kadri tries his move. The peloton, it'll disturb them that they're so far ahead, just coming up for 3 kilometres to go. But just now, HTC High Road have got a lot of firepower down there, and they've got the missile up the chute just behind them all.
Well, Biel Kadri's another local rider from this part of the world, so he'll be riding in front of a home crowd this afternoon. His mum actually owns a cake shop not too far away from where the race went through this afternoon. She's got a television in the cake shop, so she doesn't miss any moment of the Tour de France this year.
3 kilometres to go. Now, Mark Cavendish knows, and we certainly know because we drove in, that the last kilometre has 2 extremely sharp bends on it. And Cav will want to keep himself out of trouble, that's for sure.
The rider from the Lampre team there, Phil, over on that far side there, in fact, is the replacement sprinter. That's Danilo Hondo.
This is either David, I think this is Ryder Hagedal here, who's just made a move. No, It is Miller, opportunist, having a go.
Well, this is the kind of move that David Miller has used many, many times in the past. Now, he is the kind of rider who has the ability to keep this sustained effort off the front end of a main field when they're charging into town. But there's organisation in that peloton this afternoon, and these are big, wide roads, and they'll be touching speeds in excess of 40 miles an hour. Miller will be looking for those corners and hoping he can get round there before anybody else. 2 kilometres left to go.
But this is a great move by Miller. This has taken the pressure off his team. Garmin Cervelo are trying to set up, I think now, for their world champion Thor Hushovd, and so while he settles down, the peloton led by Tony Martin brings back David Miller.
Well, Tony Martin is the man who's doing all of this pacemaking to keep it nice and high. They do not have an organised lead-out train for Mark Cavendish this afternoon. Onto his wheel, it looks very much like they're trying to place Andre Greipel in 4th position.
Well, the race radio, if you could hear it now, is shouting at everybody because they're getting in the way and they're very concerned about this last kilometre. The motorcycles have been told to get away from the race completely. We can't see any in our picture as they line up with 1 kilometre to go, and this is where you've got to hold on to your hats here. There are 2 very sharp bends, but it looks as though at least Team HTC High Road have got good control of the front of the race.
Well, Tony Martin swung off now, and in fact it's Omega Pharma Lotto are keeping the pace nice and high because their man Andre Greipel is up into 4th position, bumping and barging. That's Greipel right on the wheel of Mark Cavendish. The 2 former teammates, now big rivals.
Well, they've got through the S's here. There's still a sharp left-hander in the last 300 metres. Thor Hushovd, who's about 4th place on the right with those dark glasses on, has got himself into a great position. This is the sharp turn here. As they come round the corner now, they've got a perfect lead up for the line. Now it is up to see if the sprint can come, and I don't see Mark Cavendish getting in on this one now. Watch out for Rojas. There he goes. He popped out of the shadows, and just look at the speed of this man. He sees the finish. Wait for it. He's being challenged by Greipel. He looks at Greipel. He grips again. and on the line, Greipel this time has got the better of Mark Cavendish, and that was a terrific sprint. The two arch rivals who were teammates have now gone 2-1 up in this year's Tour de France in the favour of Mark.
That was an incredible sprint by Andre Greipel, and how much has he enjoyed that, and more sweet because he's beaten to the line Mark Cavendish.
Absolutely, that will go down as a being very, very, very special for Andre Greipel. The presence of Mark Cavendish over the years has kept Greipel out of the Tour de France to such an extent Greipel had to change teams, and the result is he's pipped Mark Cavendish right on the line.
He did, and not quite as close as I thought it was once the photo came out. So there's the stage result. A top four of Greipel, Cavendish, Rojas and Usoft. Then Romain Fayou, Daniel Oss, off whose wheel Cav launched himself, Sebastian Eno and Borut Božič just edging Geraint Thomas into 9th. Philippe finished 14th, which is pretty good given his huge effort to escape. All the favourites finished in the main field on the same time. Well, he's had a few about Mark Cavendish over the years. He had to leave HTC to get out from the large shadow of his small rival, but it was a move that paid off today. Philippe Gilbert has played a major part in this year's Tour, being such a good one so far, and he was at it again today. In the end, his late attack saw him concede ground to José Joaquín Rojas and Mark Cavendish in the green jersey race, but it was great to watch, and of course ultimately it helped set up his teammate. Well, Johnny Hergeland's teammate Marco Marcato helped defend his polka dot jersey brilliantly today, while he rode round gingerly in it, trying not to snap his stitches and mulling over several thousand internet proposals of marriage. And he made it to the podium again. Well, Thor Hushovd did the yellow jersey proud for a week, and Thomas Voeckler clearly has no intention of sneaking round anonymously in the middle of the pack either. Out at the front today in that late break that almost got away to the finish.